All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this village board meeting to order on Monday, May 15, 2023, and ask if you would all please rise and join the village board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Baldino. Trustee LaBedz.
Here.
Trustee Grasse.
Here.
Trustee Shirley.
Here.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Here.
Trustee Dunnington.
Here.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Here.
Trustee Bertucci.
Here.
President Hayes.
Here. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, and we have two sets to approve tonight. The first is from the Committee of the Whole meeting of May 1st, 2023. Are there any changes or passes?
Move approval. Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Grasse. Any questions or comments from the board or from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next are the minutes from the village board meeting of that same evening, May 1st, 2023. Any changes or passes?
Move approval of the village board meeting from May 1st, 2023.
Second. Second.
Motion by Trustee Schwingbeck, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Move on then to the approval of the accounts payable, and I call on Trustee Bertucci.
I'll move approval of the warrant register for the check date May 15th, 2023, in the amount of $4,678,448.96.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee Tinaglia. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Bertucci.
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz.
Yes.
Trustee Shirley.
Yes.
Trustee Grasse.
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington.
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Well, under recognitions and presentations, I do want to just make a statement, and it's regarding the potential demolition of the buildings at the Arlington Park site. We know we've had some questions and some concerns raised about that. In the interest of full transparency, which this board is 100% committed to with respect to all aspects of the redevelopment of Arlington Park and the potential relocation of the Chicago Bears to that site, I do want to read this statement. As has been reported in the media recently, the village did receive an application for demolition of certain structures on the racetrack property on May 5th. The village is in the process of reviewing the application to ensure that it is complete and that any plans to demolish structures are consistent with requirements in the village code. Given the interest in this project, we want to make clear that in this circumstance, the village does not have any authority to withhold approval of demolition for any reason if the application is complete and if a property owner's demolition plans comply with the village code. Unlike residential or downtown demolition applications, the issuance of commercial demolition permits in Arlington Heights is not subject to discretion, and the village board has no role in the review or approval of such applications. If this demolition permit is approved, the demolition schedule will be finalized. Once finalized, the demolition schedule will then be shared with the public, and the public can always find the latest information on the Arlington Park redevelopment on our website at www.vah.com. Any questions or comments from the board on that? Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. I really appreciate your reading that statement tonight because I think in the past there have been questions about what we know and what we don't know, maybe holding back information. And this is just more clarity to everyone that we are doing all that we can to be as transparent as possible about everything that's going out there at the site. And so we know everything you know everything we know, and this is just one more step in the process that hopefully goes well and neat and smart and sharp, and we're all in this together. As I said last time we were together, it's a marathon, and it's just getting started right now. The race has got a long way to go. So thank you for reading
Thanks,
that.
Trustee Tinaglia. Any further questions or comments from the board? All right. We'll move on then in the agenda to citizens to be heard, and I have no blue cards from individuals who wish to address the board on items not on the agenda, but I do see Melissa Kayer coming forward. So, Melissa.
Melissa Kerr speaking. I just want to remind everybody to check the Federal Department of Labor website for their Form 5500 on pension fund report, or the financial report of their pension fund. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Anyone else in the audience wish to address the board on items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, I will close the citizens to be heard portion of the agenda and move on to old business. And we do have several items to report out from our committee of the whole meeting of May 8th, 2023, and our meeting from earlier this evening. And so the first item is the election of a president pro tem. And just to state once again what I stated last week when I wholeheartedly recommended for reappointment Trustee Robin LaBedz to the position of President Pro Tem. Trustee LaBedz has done an outstanding job as President Pro Tem for the last 2 years, and we look forward to her continual dedicated service in this position for the next 2 years as well. So I think Trustee Schwingbeck made the motion, so I call in Trustee
Thank you, Mayor.
Schwingbeck.
I would move today, as I did back on May 8th, to concur in the mayor's recommendation that Trustee Robin LaBedz continues as President Pro Tem for another 2 years.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Schwingbeck, seconded by Trustee Tinaglia. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, congratulations, Robin. I look forward to working together with you in this capacity for another 2 years. And again, I hope to give you some more opportunities to serve officially in that capacity in the months ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. I really appreciate everyone's support in this role and your well, support, actually, and that I just said.
Great. All right,
Thanks.
thank you. We do have another item to report out from our meeting this evening. 2 items. First was by Trustee LaBedz.
That's right. I move now, as I did earlier this evening, to concur in the mayor's appointment of Sheila Kessler for appointment to the Arts Commission with a term ending April 30th, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Schwingbeck. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, Sheila, if you come forward to the podium, and we'll make it official. If you would raise your right hand and repeat after me, I, and state your full name.
I, Sheila Kessler,
Having been appointed to the Arts Commission
having been appointed to the Arts Commission
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the Village of Arlington Heights,
in the County of Cook,
in the County of Cook,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office according to the best of my ability.
of the office to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Sheila. We know you will. I'm going to present you with a village logo pin to wear proudly as an appointed representative of this board and this community, and also give you this oath of office to sign with our village clerk. So congratulations again. All right. Looking forward to working with you.
Congratulations.
Thank
We do have one other motion to report out from our committee of the whole meeting from earlier this evening, and that was made by Trustee Grasse.
I move now, as I did earlier this evening, to recommend that the Village Board of Trustees recommend to the Liquor Commissioner the issuance of a Class E liquor license to Porky's Barbecue Incorporated, doing business as Porky's Barbecue, located at 41 South Dutton Avenue. The liquor license will not be released until the second walkthrough is satisfactorily completed, verifying the floor plan layout and seating minimum is met.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Grasse, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, congratulations, the team from Porky's. Thank you for your dedication to our community, and keep up the great work in providing the very good tasting food. So thank you very much. All right, there is no other old business, and so we'll move on then to the consent agenda. Are there any members of the board who wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Members of the audience wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, any members of the board wish to vote no or pass on any item on the consent agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve the consent agenda by trustee Tinaglia, seconded by trustee LaBedz. Roll call.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Grasse?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Shirley?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Move on then to new business. We do have two items to consider tonight. The first is a request for a land use variation to allow music conservatories or instruction in the M1 district for the Betty Haig Academy of Music to be located at 3255 North Arlington Heights Road. I just want to mention in full disclosure that Mrs. Haig was both my kids' violin teacher back in the 1980s. And so I have no financial interest. I don't think there's any reason for me to recuse myself, but I did want to acknowledge the fact that they did take from Mrs. Haig some 35, 40 years ago now, and so she's still teaching and wants to continue teaching here in our community. And so, I don't know, Mrs. Haig, are you going to be presenting, or who's going to be presenting for you? Come forward now if you would.
Well, recently, for the past 10 years, my school was at Buffalo Grove at the old Radcliffe building that you can see has been sold and is now going to be demolished, I believe. And we had to move in 2021, of August of 2021. One of my parents found the 3255 North Arlington Heights complex, which was actually within walking distance of our past school. We chose that location because it was safe for the children. It's a school for children. We teach violin to children starting at the age of 3 years old, where the left hemisphere of the brain is being developed, and all kinds of discipline is being developed in the child, and their love for music is being developed. We teach 3-year-olds through high school. We teach autistic children of special needs. We have a little boy who has cerebral palsy, and we have other children who have learning disabilities that need to be taught music. It helps them emotionally. I feel that there has been some kind of a problem with the name recognition of our school. When I taught Mayor Hayes' children, I believe we had 400 children in the school. And now, of course, I have downsized where we have about 100 violin players in our school. The children have traveled all over the world as musical ambassadors. Mr. Hayes' 2 children were with us when we traveled to the Vatican to play for Pope John Paul. We then subsequently played for Pope Benedict. We played at the White House 2 different times for 2 different presidents, and we were invited to play for a state dinner for the late President Nazarbayev of Kazakhstan. The children have played at Carnegie Hall twice, at the Kennedy Center, Lincoln Center. They recently played for the Jewish Violins of Hope. And they're young children who have given so much back to the community. During the pandemic, they live streamed concerts to children's hospitals all over the world. And I find it so difficult that we've had so much difficulty with this particular location because we were not told that there was problem with the zoning. And when I applied for my license, and I sent in my money for the license, and it was rejected the first time. And they asked if I would give them a detailed description of my school, how many teachers I had, how many cars every half hour, how many students every half hour. And I wondered why, when the emotional wellness center is down the street and a pediatrician's office is around the corner, they have more cars per half hour than we do at our school. But I wondered if they had to submit this kind of detailed description. This is a school for children that would be a disaster if that was taken away from all these young children. Instead of receiving my license, this is my certificate, my receipt that I paid for my village license. I never received it. But instead, I received a sticker on my door one day that said I was occupying a premises illegally and I must leave in 60 days. I called the number on the sticker and talked to the person. I said, I cannot possibly leave the premises in 60 days. And tell me what I should do. What is our option? And he said, that's your problem, lady. So I feel that this is a school with a really fine reputation, that any community would be so happy maybe to embrace our young children and our young students. And I felt that we were treated rather unjustly in this whole matter. And I guess now this is the second time I've been before the village committee, and I'm hoping that you people, our lease is up in August, and I'm hoping that you will change your mind and let us stay in your community. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Haig. Charles?
Yes, thank you. Obviously, the school has been around for many decades, done some wonderful things. I'll get to the boring part, which is the zoning side of the situation. So music conservatories or instruction are not a permitted use in the zoning district that the Betty Haig School is in. It's kind of unusual. The property, while it looks like an office development and primarily is, it's zoned M1, which is a manufacturing district. So this particular use is not a permitted use. So when they submitted their business license, it was routed up to us. It was rejected appropriately because the use isn't allowed. I don't know exactly what happened after that, but then they started to go through the process. We said you can stay in operation as long as you go through the process. And then for some reason things stopped. Maybe they weren't able to pull the paperwork together or something, and then code enforcement did go out and put the sticker on the door to try to get them to move forward with proceeding with the application. So we're here. It's a pretty straightforward request. They don't have any kind of major concerts or mass recitals on the site. We did receive one email of concern over noise. They've kind of shown some sound attenuation tiles that could be put in the facility if noise does become an issue. It does abut the townhouse development to the east that you can see on this development here. We've only had one complaint because of the process, so unless we get a lot of complaints, we don't intend to request that sound attenuation to be installed. But there is a condition that could be installed if the village felt noise was an issue. So most of their kind of large group activities are held off-site. Their concerts are at other locations. These are really small one-on-one, tutorials in private office spaces. So staff recommended approval, and the Plan Commission also recommended approval with a couple of conditions. There are some landscape violations on the site that if they're not followed through with, that would be a normal code enforcement action against the property owner, not this tenant, because this is just a small tenant in a larger building. there is sufficient parking on the property. There's no parking variation being requested, so it's just a land use variation.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Perkins. And I know one of the concerns that was raised at the Plan Commission and Mr. Perkins just reflected on was the noise potential for coming out of this particular music school. And it's clear from the record that this is just 5 classrooms with individual instruction. There's no group classes. There are group performances. And so I think all of us have had experiences with kids or other family members that play musical instruments in the home practicing. And although sometimes it's a little shrill when they're learning their first pieces, Twinkle Twinkle or Lightly Row or something like that, the sound doesn't travel very far. You know, if I've been upstairs and I couldn't hear my kids playing the violin, practicing the violin downstairs. And so I'm not concerned about the sound traveling out of the building to the residential complex across the parking lot. And so those are just my comments. Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I wish I would have heard about your place when I started playing the violin. I played from 2nd grade through high school myself. I would have liked to have visited some of those places. If I read correctly, they started like in November last year there? Before, was it November before the notice was put up?
Yes, they'd moved in and then submitted for their business license,
Okay.
and that's when we became aware of it. So they moved in 2021. Okay. And then, in November of 2022 is when we gave them the advice they needed to either relocate or submit a land use variation to get the approval. And so that's when the process started. And then at some point it stopped for a while and then started again.
And you said the only complaint was from the residents behind.
We received one email. I don't 100% know whether it was from the resident behind or from an existing tenant,
Okay.
just expressing some concern over the noise potential.
Well, I did a little due diligence. I called several of the businesses right next to you, and I didn't get any negative feeling at all. I mean, people couldn't even hear what was going on. So I certainly am not worried about some violins playing, and as the mayor said, when I would practice, the windows were all open and my neighbors could hear throughout the whole neighborhood, so they knew when I was practicing. But I talked to several of the businesses right in that 3255 address, and nobody seemed, Charles, to have any complaints at all. They couldn't hear anything, so I would.
And nobody showed up at the the advertised public hearing either. So
Yeah.
we did not view it as a big issue.
Yeah, and I look down at some of these other businesses that are there, like Family Medical, and there's the other business. Where is it? The one on child behavior therapy. So there's other businesses in there that are not manufacturing. I would have no issue at all moving forward with this. Thank you, Mayor.
Trustee Bertucci.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things. Either Randy or Charles, has the petitioner agreed to all the conditions?
I believe they have.
Ms. Haig, Betty, would you mind stepping forward again one more time? Mayor, do you mind if I just ask her?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Haig, I just want to confirm that you agree to all the conditions in the motion. Has anybody read those to you?
The conditions being what?
The recommendation to change or allow for a conservatories or instruction in the M1 district comes with a condition, three conditions. One, being an agent of the property owner shall install landscaping, so some of the landscaping issues, okay? Also, should noise issues arise, as determined by the village, the sound installation panels shall be installed with a 30 days notice, and then that you'd comply with federal, state, and village codes and regulations.
I'm willing to do any of those things.
Okay.
The problem is, the person, the business that's right adjacent to our last studio, came to me one morning as I was going into the school, and he asked if it was a music school, and I said, yes, are we disturbing you? And he said, no, to the contrary, I never hear any sounds coming out of there, and I want to start my grandchild
Great.
in music.
Great.
So his studio is butts up against our last studio, but he said he never hears any sounds.
Good. Okay, well, we just needed to make sure that you agree to the conditions if we go
Absolutely.
forward and allow this. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And then I want to apologize for the village in the sense of some of the miscommunication. It's disheartening to me to hear that you felt like you were blown off, and that's a concern. So with that being said, I will move to recommend that a land use variation to allow music conservatories or instruction in the M1 district, with the motion subject to all the conditions as listed.
Second.
Motion by trustee Bertucci, not for recommendation, but for approval.
For approval, I'm sorry. Yeah, because it comes, yes.
Right. And seconded by trustee Schwingbeck. Any further questions? Trustee LaBedz.
Yes, thank you, and I too am sorry for the way the situation unfolded. The petitioner, you're not actually the petitioner. The petitioner is the commercial real estate. Is that correct, Charles? At least that's what it says on the staff report, and they're
Yes.
the ones that would be responsible for the landscape.
That is
Correct?
correct. They're the agent for the property owner, a commercial real estate firm. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, because I wanted to make sure everybody understood that they're responsible. Mrs. Haig is not responsible for anything to do with the landscaping. And I just also want to mention that this isn't the first, and this, again, is not anything to do with Mrs. Haig, but this is not the first time that this property owner we've had this kind of situation where somebody's moved in and they weren't aware of what they needed to do for their business license, or even if they were a permitted use. And I know this came up at the Plan Commission. I saw that in the minutes.
Yes, and we have provided them with a letter encouraging them to, before they finalize a lease, to check with our office on, the zoning of the use, and so that we can work with them on that.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, because I don't want this to happen to anybody else, and definitely not your school.
Yeah, perhaps the reason that the realtor didn't tell us about the zoning problem was because when a parent found the location for me, and when I went to look at the school, it so happened that the realtor, I had taught his niece for 13 years also, and he knew my school operation. He knew that it probably was a good fit for that particular location. So I think, in all honesty, he did it without thinking about any kind of a zoning problem at this point, but I don't know.
Well, I think most people normally wouldn't be aware of that unless they're involved in the types of things we do, or the Plan Commission does, or village staff does. So I can understand that. I mean, your school is terrific. I did not have a child go through it, but I did have one in Music for Youth, which you founded, who played cello for a number of years. So, what you've done for the children of Arlington Heights and the surrounding communities, and what you continue to do is just tremendous, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. We would like to continue our legacy if it's all possible.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. So my only comment is thank you for making your home here. I mean, with all that you have accomplished in your career, with the hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of youth that you've worked with, it's quite a reputation, quite a wonderful commitment, and to have you here and stay here. And it looks like you have other people that are ready to step up and carry the ball for you, if I'm not mistaken. So Am I right? We're gonna try. Excellent, excellent. It's
Well, I had a hard time keeping my students from coming here tonight.
I bet they were.
Oh, they'd
Well,
love to.
So I think you can see from all of us here that we're happy for you. At the same time, we're happy for us. So thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right, hold on. Trustee Dunnington.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. In our packet, it mentions the potential bicycle parking installation locations. And so I was wondering if the commercial property owner will be installing the bike racks.
So they have identified a couple of locations where they could be located, but because there's not an increase in parking demand, it actually doesn't trigger that as a requirement under the village's ordinance. So, you know, it's kind of, it would be voluntary on their behalf at this point.
We can't require them to do that.
The requirement is if the intensity increases and it increases a parking demand, then the new bicycle code requirement kicks in, but if it doesn't, then it's not required.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. So Charles, we've heard from Betty Haig tonight, but in reality, she's not the petitioner. So we asked the question earlier, do you agree with all these? Has the property owner agreed to it?
Well, the next step in the process, if the board were to approve this, is the drafting of an ordinance. And what we're doing now with Attorney Passman is, requiring that the petitioner sign that they are in agreement with the stipulations. So that would have to occur before the ordinance comes back at the next meeting.
Yeah, because I think you heard we're certainly in favor of having her music school there, but the conditions really apply to the landlord, not Mrs. Haig. So that's who we really
I
have.
would like that made very clear that
Right.
it would not be our expense to put up soundproofing in the
Right.
rooms. Our rent is pretty high right now, and the school is funded by Robert Galvin Foundation, and 40% of our students in the school are given scholarships. So it would be an impossibility for us to have that expense to put up soundproofing.
Yeah, the record is clear.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments from the board? Trustee Bertucci.
Just real quickly, is there a agent for the property owner here? Okay. Okay, just wanted to double check. Trustee LaBedz and Trustee Schwingbeck, thanks for the clarification and focus on that. So that's the only question I
So
have.
if I could just add, there is a little, difficulty on the soundproofing because the soundproofing applies to the use, which is the Betty Haig Academy. I'm not privy to what all the nuances on their lease are, so it may well be that those kind of costs the landlord passes on to the tenant. So it probably is, that would be an issue if it becomes a problem down the road that would have to get worked out between the landlord and the tenant.
Okay, Trustee Grasse.
Ms. Haig, I just wanted to thank you for all that you have brought to our community and our young people in just creating the passion for music. And I just wanted to make a comment. We have these various districts, like this is a manufacturing district, and it worked at one point. But what's wonderful about this whole process is I really appreciated your explanation of what you do and just how innovative and creative we can be together in making sure that all these different businesses and parts of our community can find a place here. So thank you for all you do with your music.
Thank you.
Well, we do have 2 blue cards from individuals who wish to address the board on this agenda item. And Mr. and Mrs. Zimmerman, you're just advised that the motion is for approval, and so you can tailor your comments accordingly. So, Mrs. Haig, you can sit down.
Thank you.
And Ellen, you want to come forward? You have to come forward. And just give us your name if you would.
Ellen Plasek Zimmerman. Yes, we're here to support Mrs. Haig, the Academy. I also have attended the Planning Commission meeting when there was a representative, and that representative, if I understood correctly, did agree to these things. But again, it was, not all written out at that point, so I humbly respect if there are some other aspects here. But again, that person was here. I also want to reiterate that it came very clear at that committee meeting, this is not the first time that this particular organization has done this type of thing. And I would hope that as a village, we would put forth our rules, our regs, our whatever, to ensure that other people don't have to go through what Mrs. Haig has had to go through. This has been a tremendous amount of expended energy in order for us to get to this point when, quite frankly, I would rather see her, and I suspect she would rather be teaching those kids, some of whom were your kids, and one is my grandchild. Amen.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Zimmerman. And next, Alan Zimmerman. You can use that one, yeah.
You don't mind if I don't get up?
No, you can use this other one over here if it's easier.
I can reach this
Okay.
one. At this point, I'm the caboose here, as far as speaking, so most has already been said. At the other meeting that we had, the Committee of the Whole meeting, these recommendations were put forth, and it was the property owner, we believe, was acknowledging them. Asking Betty as a tenant in the property, when I had my architectural firm, I used to always say, the insurance runs out at the front door. So anything beyond the front door, unfortunately, is not her responsibility, i.e. landscaping or pavement or vehicular traffic or any of those other things. So hopefully that the village can apply some pressure to the landlord to get these things resolved so that Betty is able to get a business license and function like other businesses in the village. That's, I think, one of the goals, and quite frankly, it's been a big letdown, and I'm embarrassed. I was born in this town over 70 years ago. So, I haven't run across this. I've worked on clients with hundreds of thousands of square feet of lease. Changing zoning should not be very difficult at all, especially in the city of Chicago. I'm surprised that this landlord has been able to create this kind of havoc with you folks for this long and this many times. Because I heard that at the other meeting, this was not the first time with other tenants, and especially with other business tenants in the same manufacturing district. So hopefully this can get resolved expediently.
All right, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Zimmerman. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the board on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, any further discussion from the board? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, congratulations, Mrs. Haig. We wish you continued success, and thank you for all that you've done to teach our kids over many, many years now. So good to see you again. All right, we will move on then to the other new business item, and that is a request for a amendment to the planned unit development to amended ordinance 98-061 to modify a condition of approval to allow medical and dental office uses in the subject unit. And that's the unit at Metropolis, the Metropolis building located 11 South Highland Avenue. Is the petitioner present? Come forward if you would.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Jeffrey Evans. I'm the attorney for the petitioner, and along with me to my side is Dr. Walter Zatera, our petitioner, and his daughter, Mika Zatera, who's also in attendance. We're here this evening tonight for a variation on a current planned unit development for the location at 11 South Highland in Arlington Heights. The underlying zoning district for this property is B5, which by right allows medical and dental offices. However, there's a plan unit development here in the area, Ordinance 98-061, which prohibits medical uses. Dr. Zatera is seeking a variance to permit a dental office as well as waiving the parking study. I'd like to point out that the former businesses at this location included a physical therapist and a podiatrist's office, and it wasn't until Dr. Zatera went in and applied for his license that it came out that it was in violation of the PUD, so we're now seeking for that variance. Accordingly, the addition of a dental office to this property will not alter the essential character of the locality and will be compatible with existing uses and zoning of nearby property. With the variance, the property will be used in a way that is similar to past uses and is a reasonable use for the property. The variance is the minimum variance necessary to allow this reasonable use. The petitioner, Dr. Zatera, has been running his dental practice for the past 16 years here in Arlington Heights, just a few blocks away. Unfortunately, his lease was terminated because the building was sold and they were doing something different with the building. His plight in this particular instance is due to some unique circumstances for which approval of the variance will help him overcome this hardship. At this time, I'd just like to introduce you to Dr. Zatera, who can speak directly to you and answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Welcome.
So I've been practicing here for 16 years, and I got a month's notice. I had to leave the office. I put everything in storage, and I'm working out of 2 temporary offices. Thank God for friends that I know. It's been quite a hassle moving from one location to the other temporarily. When we found this place, we really liked the location, and since it was a medical office before, we thought it was perfect. And then when I went to the village to find out, they said no medical allowed. So at this point, that's what we're trying to do, is change the laws here.
Okay, thank you. Anything further?
No, that's it, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Perkins.
Yes, this is part of the Metropolis Plan Unit development that consists of 3 buildings on 3 different lots. The one North Highland, a condominium building with commercial uses on the first floor, of which this is one of the spaces. Then the Metropolis building, that's a 4-story, has Metropolis Performing Arts in there, and then the 3rd and 4th levels. 3rd level is the ale house, but could be office, and the 4th level is office, and then I think you're familiar with the other uses there. So in 1998, when this was considered and approved by the board, the concern was that if the 30 or 40,000 square feet of space in that building all went to medical office, there would be a significant impact on the village's parking system. So that ordinance prohibited medical office in this development. We recognize that over the years there were a couple of users that went in there, some without village knowledge. Some medical users are exempt from village licensing requirements, and then when the doctor came forward, that was when we looked at somebody did the right thing, looked at the zoning and pulled the history and realized that medical office is not permitted. This is a 1,200 square foot space. They've got about 4 exam rooms in there. We looked at the parking in the garage. We agree with the waiver on the parking requirement. We looked at the data from the parking guidance system, and during the hours of operation, there's sufficient parking in the Vale Avenue garage. In the evening times with Sounds of Summer and things like that kicking up at 6 p.m., that's when it gets really surcharged in the garage, but the offices are closed by that point in time. We looked at this. We recommended approval to the Plan Commission just for this space, still keeping the restriction on the remainder of the Metropolis PUD, but allowing medical office in this particular space. So we recommend approval of it, and consistent with the Plan Commission recommendation.
Thanks, Mr. Perkins. Questions from the board? Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. So looking at the information in our packet, it's Monday through Wednesday. Do you have any?
Monday through Wednesday, 8 to 5.
Right.
9 to 6, depending on the day.
Right.
Thursday off, Friday, and Saturday half days.
Right. Do you have any interest in opening up on Thursdays?
Doctor, could you move over by the microphone a little bit? Thank you.
Not at this time. That's my day off, and me and my buddies go golfing on that day.
Okay. So were you closed at the other place on Thursday as well? Okay. And then the Fridays and Saturdays, if I understand that, it's every other. So just
Right.
two weekends a month. Okay. Yeah. And I Charles, as you said, I think the good thing is that, especially on the Fridays and Saturdays, that that you're done. I think by what was it, 6 o'clock?
Fridays and Saturdays usually like 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock? Okay. Yeah, and it's a small amount of patients. I mean, you're not looking at expanding, so you're just looking at keeping the business where it's at, as explained? Okay.
And there
Well,
really is no room for expansion with 4 operatories.
What's that?
There really is no room for expansion in that spot.
Right, right. Well, I appreciate you staying in the area and considering this location, and looking at the practice, you intend to keep it at a small scale, and I think having Thursday off probably helps us downtown as well, because the Thursdays get pretty busy,
Okay.
especially in the summer with al fresco, and alternating weekends helps as well. So I'm certainly in favor of this. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Trustee Grasse.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry that happened to you. That sounds like a lot of stress happening with your business, but I'm grateful that you want to stay here, and I do support this recommendation. I did have one question, though. Is there any sort of different kind of garbage pickup that will have to happen with biohazard waste?
No, that's taken care of. That's a separate thing that we have a special pickup for that.
Wonderful. That was my only question with that. Thank you.
Trustee LaBedz and then Trustee Tinaglia.
Thank you. I too am sorry that you had to vacate in a month. I can't believe that with all the equipment a dental office would have. That's pretty amazing you were able to do what you
I'm
did.
surprised myself, too.
I can believe it. Mr. Perkins, you mentioned there are some kind of medical uses that don't require a license. I was just curious. I was not aware of that. Or a business license.
There are some uses that are exempt under state law from obtaining a business license, so that also creates a challenge.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was not aware that was a situation. So, but a dental practice is not one of those exempt uses.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but they reached out to us and asked, and so we looked at it, and so it's currently not allowed, but hopefully with this action would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm certainly supportive of this. I was a patient when it was a podiatrist's office, and cozy. It's cozy, but it works. So I'm sure it'll work well for you too. So
Thanks.
Thank you.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. Trustee Schwingbeck asked the one of two questions I had about expansion, and I'm kind of familiar with it. There's really no room to grow, right?
Right. There's 4 operatories. We have 1 hygienist, and I use 2 operatories, and she uses 2 operatories.
So it's staying at 1,200 square feet, and that's that.
Yeah, it can't go any bigger than that.
So how long is your lease set up for right now?
I think it's a 5-year lease.
Well, the yours is he'll own it.
Oh, there's a purchase. It's a condo.
Yes. We're ready to close at any minute we get board approval. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in support of the program, so thanks.
Anybody else? Trustee Bertucci.
Thank you, Mayor. In response to piggyback on Trustee LaBetz's question about licenses, it's my understanding that if you are licensed by the state, that you do not need a village license. So, for example, as a investment advisor, I am licensed by the state. I do not need a village business license. And that would probably also apply to the medical community because you are licensed by the state, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know if you're licensed by the state, Jim, as an architect. So you also would not need a village.
I have a professional design firm license given and that's really it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's-
So
it's
Charles, I don't
state.
know if that helps clarify, but that is it's very, it's very frustrating for me sometimes because every once in a while when I get a village inspection come in, they'll say, well, you don't have a village business license. And I'm like, okay, here we go again. And then I have to explain to them. And if I'm not there, they actually issue a ticket. And then I have to explain, blah, blah, blah. So you might want to pass that word along through the staff. And maybe, Hart, you can clarify it even more, the language or what the rules are. But that's my understanding.
If I may, it's not exclusively just if there's a state license. There are some professions for which licensure is allowed by both the state and locality, but there are some where the state has preempted municipal licensure. And so we have had discussions with staff about the general concept, and it can be a little bit kind of a checkerboard just because of the nature of state regulations and state laws, but we'll continue to work with staff to identify when the village can demand the business license and when we can't.
And we do have a list of those. I just don't have them with me, and we can share them with other departments that might have been, the ones, reaching out to those that are occupying the space already.
Anything else from the board? Seeing none. Do we have a motion? We don't have a motion. What's the will of the board? Trustee LaBedz.
I'd be happy to make a motion to concur with the Plan Commission's recommendation for this variation to the planned unit development, amended ordinance of 98-061 to modify the condition of approval to allow medical and dental office uses in the subject unit with the variations and the conditions as listed.
Second.
Motion by Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Grasse. Further questions from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
We move on then to legal. We do have two ordinances to consider tonight. First is an ordinance amending Chapter 18 of the Municipal Code regarding electrical vehicle parking. Mr. Recklaus.
Thank you, Mayor. No presentation on this one. Back in October, the village board discussed the installation of electrical vehicle charges in the Vale Garage, a set on the second floor for residents and a set on the first floor for customers. Those were approved and those have been installed, but putting those into operation does necessitate some changes to our village code to allow for enforcement. The ordinance that's before you specifically changes some of our code to specify that for those electric charging spaces, it is unlawful for someone to park on a non-electric vehicle, to park an unplugged electric vehicle, to park a plugged electric vehicle that's not being charged, or to park an electric vehicle on the second floor of the garage for more than 4 consecutive hours between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. There's a couple of other kind of just administrative rules that will be put into effect that'll be enforced when the stations are fully operational here over the next few days. But there is also, in addition to that, we have reviewed it, and we are going to be making a change unrelated to eliminate the ban on backing into parking spaces at village facilities. This has been something that's been a bone of contention for a long time. The police department has more ability to engage in enforcement using license plate readers now than they have in the past, and so this is going to reduce the incidences of when they have to exit their vehicle to check if the vehicle has a permit. But that's basically it, and staff recommends approval.
Any questions on the proposed ordinance? Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Randy, I did a little bit of research when we were first talking about putting these in, but when you, like your one clause there, the parking of an electric vehicle that's not being charged, these are going to be charging stations that people are going to have to park there and run a credit card?
They'll have a credit card, or is it an app? Charles, you might know better.
Most of them you can use either. So
Either one?
they would either download the app and sign in on the app, and the credit card would be part of that app, or they could use the credit card at the machine.
Yeah, I guess the one thought I had is when you circle around the first floor of the parking lot, especially in the evening. Right now, there's nothing going on there, so those slots are just empty. But I'm assuming with this ordinance that people are not, we're going to check to make sure that they're just not plugged in and sitting there.
Yes.
Because it's certainly a prime place to park.
Yes, it should be easy to read the indicator
Okay.
for our enforcement folks. And, right now the machines are bagged, and once they go into operation, it'll be easier for a person to, one of our enforcement folks to check by and see.
All
if
right.
the thing
So
is
they'll be
indeed
making
charging.
their rounds, and they'll see that the vehicle's
Absolutely.
either being charged or not being charged, and then we'll just ticket it like a parking ticket.
I believe that depending on the violation, if they're charging for over the limit, then they will actually get charged through the app or through their credit card that they've given us. So it'll be more efficient that way.
Okay. But if they're parked there and not charging, it'll just be
Just get a
like a
ticket.
parking ticket with
Correct.
adjudication.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, anything further from the board? Anything from the audience on this? If not, is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
I would move approval of the ordinance.
Second.
Motion by trustee LaBedz, second by trustee Dunnington. Any further questions or comments from the board or the audience? If not, roll call.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Grasse?
Yes.
Trustee Shirley?
Yes.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. One more ordinance to consider tonight. That's another one amending Chapter 18. This one regarding village parking facilities. Mr. Ecklouse.
Yes. So back on April 10th, the village board discussed in a COW meeting some possible physical improvements and code changes to help address the recent increase in nuisance incidences at the village parking facilities. And at that meeting, the village board directed staff to draft an ordinance that would implement the code changes discussed and to further research physical improvements. We're still getting pricing on the physical improvements, but we have prepared an ordinance which we can walk you through tonight. If you can go to the next slide. Basically, what this would do is it would designate our parking facilities, including our surface parking lots, as limited use facilities. And it would limit usage to individuals who are parking their motor vehicles or bicycles and getting to and from them, and others could be cited for trespassing. Next slide. The other aspect of this are individuals that store private property on site. We have to provide a process that would allow for the village to remove and, if stored long enough, dispose of private property found on the site. Private property could be removed 7 days after giving advance notice, which would mean placing a sticker like sign on the personal item saying that if this item is not removed within 7 days, then it will be moved to a village location. It'll have the address of where that would be. And if it's removed, there'll be another sign that puts up saying that your items have been removed. Call this number to make an appointment to pick up your items. Storage, under this ordinance, we would store items for 30 days prior to disposal. If we do not hear from anyone in 30 days, we would dispose the items. This is something that has been vetted by legal and is necessary to protect the constitutional rights of property owners. However, I can say in practice, generally speaking, for individuals that are camping or storing items currently in our village parking garages, the Public Works Department and the Police Department are generally on a first-name basis with these folks, and they're confident that this can be handled, while we're still going to do the signage and the tagging and all of that, that in generally all of these cases, there are folks with whom they have a relationship and they can warn them. If there are still items there, they can let them know, hey, this is where you need to pick up your stuff. Set a time for us and we'll meet you out there and do it. We are going to be securing boxes that can be locked to store the materials so that they're stored safely. But we feel that 30 days is a reasonable amount of time for storage of those items. Generally speaking, these items for these individuals will be missed immediately, and we expect that they will seek them out almost immediately to find items. That's kind of the concept with this. If you can go to the next slide, Charles. Violations, if you were found violating this ordinance, the way that this would work is someone who was given a first violation of essentially trespassing, where they are engaging in activity other than walking to and from their vehicle or parking it or parking their bicycle or walking to and from it, is they be given a warning by a police officer. And with the warning, we take the individual's name and it's put into our police records management system, and so there's a record of it. The next offense, unless someone was doing something egregious or resisting, it would result in a ticket. And the ticket would be put in our DACRA system, so again, there'd be a record of it. It would go to administrative adjudication, and the administrative adjudicator, the hearing officer, would have the authority to fine the individual between $500 and $750, or, and this is specifically put in this ordinance, or they could order them to provide community service as an alternative in this case. In extreme circumstances where someone is not being cooperative, or if you have multiple offenses or they're refusing to comply, police officers do have the authority to charge someone with criminal trespassing, where they could be placed under arrest, and then this would be going to the county courts for prosecution. The police officers do not and would not engage in this for frequently. This is something for an individual that's really not being cooperative or is a repeat offender. But that's kind of the concept that we're working out here. You want to go to the next slide? And that's it. So we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Trustee Grasse.
Thank you. Mr. Reckless, thank you for this. I appreciate this ordinance, especially as we discussed before, to allow our police department to have some authority to do some of the things to make the parking garage safe for all people. I do have a couple of questions, though. How, if we approve this ordinance, how will we make these new rules of this ordinance known to people?
We would be speaking with individuals down in the garage and letting them know. The chief and I talked about this, and this is something that we'll start talking to people tomorrow and letting them know this is happening. So there'll be a little bit of a grace period for people to find a new place to go.
And I have one other question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there'll be signs posted as well, letting them know of what the ordinance says.
And could you speak a little bit, please, Mr. Reckless, on how this would apply to those juveniles and young people who also are some of the concerns in the parking garages, because they would be held to these same
Absolutely.
new rules?
Yeah, and as we mentioned on the 10th, some of the issues that we have are, folks engaging in, skateboarding unsafely down the aisles, dropping things from the tops of the garage, jumping across, from one garage to the next building. The same principle would apply where individuals would be warned. And if it is a juvenile, our process is we take that individual's name, and if it's beyond a warning, if we're going to be issuing a ticket, then we call the juvenile's parents, and that's how they're not arrested, but they're detained at the spot by the police officer, kind of like a traffic stop, and their parents are called, and then their parents will be told of the situation, and they'll have to bring their child to adjudication as well.
Thank you.
Trustee Tinaglia.
I think it's great, Randy. I'm really, really thankful that we are at this point for so many different reasons, from so many different directions, people who have expressed concerns and worries about all this, and not for both of the levels that we're talking about here. When someone gets warned or fined or otherwise, they're escorted off the property or asked to leave. What's the police?
If they're
protocol?
warned, yeah, they would be asked to leave. And generally speaking, the police will kind of do another sweep a little while later, and if the person has returned, then that would be an escalation. The officer has the discretion then to ramp that up in terms of what a ticket being written or a custodial arrest if warranted.
So that could all happen in like one day.
Oh, for sure.
Because if someone's being obstinate and says, "All right, sorry, I'm not leaving," and then the officer comes back 2 hours later and it's still there, we're automatically at the second level.
We are, and like I said, typically arrests aren't made on a first offense. The
Right.
tickets aren't issued. We give them a warning, but a warning doesn't mean that they're just let off. We do enter their name into the system, so there's a record for us to act on later.
Right. I think it's great. Thanks very much.
Okay, Trustee Shirley.
So either Hart or Randy, What in the Constitution protects someone from leaving their belongings in a public place? I'm trying to figure out, like, we're saying we're upholding their constitutional rights, so what are those rights when it comes to, I consider it abandoning their property, but okay, so they're living there and they go out during the day and go do what they do and they leave their sleeping bag there. What are their rights?
Trustee Shirley, it's a very good question. It's a combination of some constitutional property rights as well as some state laws that regulate how a municipality deals with abandoned property, if it is in fact abandoned. This ordinance follows some models that some other communities have adopted, and it's intended to strike the balance between ensuring that our garages and parking facilities are used as they are intended, which is why one of the first new provisions of the code says it's a limited use facility. This is not public property for anything and everything. It's for parking. We know that folks sometimes leave stuff there. We know folks sometimes leave stuff in other places. It's an ability to hold it, manage it, give folks fair warning. You know, you left something, maybe you thought you could leave it here, you can't. We'll keep it for you for a limited amount of time, and after that time, it will be disposed of. So it's meant to strike that balance consistently with some federal direction as well as state law.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So if we tag a bundle of clothes in a sleeping bag, and they take off the tag and they move it to the other side of the garage, and this time the sleeping bag's on top instead of the clothes, what have we accomplished? I mean, are we just going to tag that for 7 days? And, you know, I just see, I don't really know how we're going to identify this stuff if the tag is lost to know that the 7 days has expired.
Yeah.
I think, Trustee Shirley, there's a finesse aspect to this that the police are going to have some situational awareness. And, you know, as I said, I think for the most part, our police officers and a couple of our public works employees know these folks by name, and they will recognize, they'll say, we tagged your stuff, they'll talk to them, but there is the chance that something like that would happen. You know, we would retag it and let them know, but I think generally speaking, they know who they're dealing with and would work with them on removing them.
Yeah. And I'll just add, if I may, this is going to be a little bit of a learning curve for both the police department as well as the individuals who may have been leaving their things there. If after an appropriate amount of time there's some tweaks that need to be made, we'll advise that. I'm sure that you'll hear about it and you'll tell us about it, and we'll come up with appropriate amendments if necessary.
Yeah, and then the determination on the level of fine from $500 to $750, is that done through the adjudication
Hearing
process?
officer would have that.
Yeah, and so if they don't show for the adjudication, because we don't have an address for these folks to serve them with notice of their adjudication hearing and when it is. I don't know how that works exactly, but so what happens if they don't show for the hearing? Then what happens next?
At that point, it can be escalated, where if they don't show and then we find them trespassing again, that'll be in the system, and the officers have access to all this information. So if they catch someone, they'll run their name. They'll say, oh, you were already warned, you were fined, you didn't show up. It'll be all within the mobile data terminals an officer has in their vehicle. And at that point, they could, if the person was still, trespassing, they could make the determination to make an arrest and charge the person with criminal trespassing if something like that played out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Trustee Bertucci.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy. I think this was a long time coming, and I'd just like to make a statement about safety in Arlington Heights in general, and that is that the safety of those who live, work, and visit Arlington Heights is a fundamental responsibility of the Arlington Heights Village government. This ordinance will give Arlington Heights residents and visitors the ability to use our public parking garages for their intended purposes and to feel safe while doing so. If approved, this will be the third safety ordinance that this board has approved in the last 12 months. Earlier in the meeting, we passed an ordinance in the consent agenda that launched a program to give the Arlington Heights Police Department the ability to better fight organized retail crime. This program is being paid for by a grant awarded to the Arlington Heights Police Department by the state of Illinois. The third of the three ordinances which I'm referencing, which was passed in June of 2022 and focused on nuisance motels, which were attracting crime and created a dramatic increase in police calls. Since that nuisance motel ordinance has been passed, and our village manager and our police chief spoke with the motel owners and management to explain the consequences of doing business as they were, the police calls to those motels have decreased greatly. Our town is ranked one of the safest villages in the Chicago metropolitan area, and we must continue to strive to keep it that way for those who live, work, and visit our town. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Trustee Dunnington.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. I have a few questions to ask you about. So the first is, with this new proposed ordinance, for the people that are living in the garage, we know that people don't just disappear, and that moving people around from place to place just moves the issue to another area. So can you talk about what services are being offered to the people that are living in the garage right now? I know that you talked about how the police and Public Works already have a relationship with the people, but can you talk about like what might happen to the people that are in the garage?
Well, you know, it's a good question, and I think we continue to work with them and try to get them connected with social services that may be able to help them find a home or at least temporary housing through, you know, organizations like Journeys and Northwest Compass and some of the places we partner with. I've met with Beth Neighbors from Journeys, and we're having a conversation about how we can, you know, leverage our resources to, you know, strengthen our partnership with them. And we've talked about this exact issue and how we can continue to work with them. Their new facility, they have their grand opening coming up here in next week or so. Yeah, and so hopefully that facility will provide opportunities for some of these folks to find a place to go. One of the reasons we're timing this right now is because the weather's getting nicer, and it's a good, you know, we're not in the middle of winter where it's more difficult for folks to find a place to spend the night that's warm. And so we're hoping that this is a good time to change some folks' patterns and usage of our facilities, and they'll be able to find better locations as needed. But I think the idea is that this facility, it's not a safe place. It's you know, for folks to sleep. It's not intended or designed for that purpose. And so, you know, we have to try to find, you know, continue to work for finding the broader solutions to some of these problems. The other thing that we do that a lot of communities don't do is our general assistance program that we have is very unique, where we actually will help folks that are on the verge of homelessness to prevent homelessness from occurring, to help you know, stem this problem broadly within our area. And so we also are going to continue to work our partnerships with social service agencies that do this type of work.
Thanks. The other part I wanted to talk about was the 30-day property of holding on to someone's property for 30 days. And I want to suggest that we increase that to 90 days. And the reason is because this is could be potentially someone's entire belongings that, you know, might just not just be a sleeping bag, but could include things like their ID or their insurance card, their birth certificate, their medicine. And we also know that unhoused people have issues with time management. And so I think that giving someone a little bit more time with just holding on to their belongings could really make a big difference, because if you don't have an ID, there's not a lot you can do without an ID, and it would take a lot of effort to get one. It also just takes a long time for unhoused people to build up their supplies. So I think it's important that we make it as easy for them as possible to get their belongings and keep all of their belongings. So I just want to ask that we change the ordinance from 30 days to holding on to their items for 90 days. When someone is homeless, it does take an average of 4 months to actually find housing. So that gives a little bit more time too, once they're getting some help and services, so that, again, they're not losing all of their belongings.
Anybody else? Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Randy, thank you for putting this together. I mean, really, we've got two completely different issues going on that are being addressed with this. One you and I have talked about many times in the past, and that's our youth in the parking garage playing around. And you said it earlier. They're doing some things that are not very safe, not only for other people but themselves, and somebody's going to get hurt one of these days when they're trying to jump from one roof to another. So certainly this is going to hopefully encourage these young middle school kids, which I think they are, from staying out of the garage and skateboarding and riding their bike and just up on the 5th floor yelling and screaming and having a good time. And so I thank you for that. On the individuals sleeping in the garage, I guess a couple of things I have that I would ask you. I mean, we've talked here, we have it at 30 days. Do you feel that the handling of this, whether we mark it, and I have a couple of things with the marking, but we put a sticker on there or mark it, have it sit there for 7 days, and then have somebody, either police or public works, remove it. Can they safely remove that? Because that's something I'm concerned about, is the safety of them removing it and then storing it. And you had mentioned tonight, and also when I talked to you this afternoon, about the cost of purchasing some bins. But can you safely handle it?
It depends what it is. They're depending on, we have had, unfortunately, situations where there's been items in the garage that have had, infestations, or, there's been human waste kind of intermingled with the items. We do have a contract service that helps us with some of those cleanups. We're working with them on how this moving service would go. Some of the things, we would simply handle. Some of the items, we probably would make a judgment call to use an outside service, and they would move the material to the storage area. So it would be kind of on a case-by-case basis. To address Trustee Dunnington's comment, 30 days is the staff recommendation. We feel that kind of strikes a balance between, what the village attorney suggested was an appropriate amount of time to protect people's rights, and kind of an operational management perspective. I think the longer you keep an item, then it presents a security issue in and of itself, where it could be stolen, the box could be broken into, et cetera. And so we're trying to kind of strike a balance, but there's nothing magic about 30 days. If we wouldn't suggest going less than 30 days, but, if the board wanted to go longer, we could. But, we're trying to balance that with the folks that are actually going to be doing this work and having to check and store and deal with these items and keep inventory of them. And, we don't want to, we weren't intending to make this into an administrative issue where we're holding several items for a long period of time.
So going to that, whether it's 60 or 90 or further out, is that causing issues for our staff?
I don't know, because we haven't done this yet. We're just anticipating it and trying to make it as straightforward as we can. And, I think one person's definition of reasonable is different than another person's. And ultimately, it's the village board's determination as to what you all think is reasonable. Right. We'll do whatever the board wants, but our recommendation is 30 days. We think that's a reasonable amount of time.
On the fines, I think when you're looking at these two completely different issues, young individuals in a parking garage and getting their parents involved, a fine like this can be eye-opening for the kids, and I'm sure there's going to be some good discussions at the home front with that fine. With homelessness, I'm assuming many of these folks don't have the money to be paying fines, so that's certainly something that we're going to have to take into consideration. Thinking about this over the last 4 or 5 days, and I think Trustee Dunnington said it, I mean, this is their personal livelihood. most likely everything that they own is in that spot. And, at first I was thinking, well, maybe if they're gone or they're in the hospital or something like that, it might be a good idea to potentially, on a case-by-case basis, maybe hold it a little longer. But if the police know these individuals and that communication happens, I'm assuming that they want to pick it up sooner than 30 days to get their personal stuff back.
Talking about it amongst staff, that's our assumption, that again, a lot of our employees are on a first name basis with a lot of these individuals, and we think that can be done. And as you said, again, we don't want to generalize or stereotype,
Right.
but for a lot of these folks that find themselves in this situation, that is, that's all of their belongings, and so they would likely be anxious to get back to them quickly. Exceptions could be if someone is, experiencing some kind of medical issue where they're hospitalized, or if someone is, is incarcerated or something like that. Those are the scenarios where we could think of where there would probably likely be kind of an extended period of time away. But one never knows. Everyone's situation is different, and that's why this is subject to kind of a reasonable standard. And like I said, staff will follow the board's lead on this.
So if we kept it at 30 and just approved it the way we've got it written right now, and our police department, along with staff, has maybe a case-by-case situation where somebody isn't able to get it and maybe wants it held there for a little longer. I'm assuming we could do that on a case-by-case basis.
If we knew there was a reason why a person couldn't get to it for 35 days or whatever, of course, we could always make arrangements to work with an individual if we were aware of their circumstance or knew the individual. But, the idea is they have a standard that we generally adhere to where there's some predictability and people kind of know what they can expect, and as to serve as a deterrent. I mean, our hope is that not long after this code provision is posted, that people will take it upon themselves to move out of these facilities on their own, and that this won't be a major problem, that the ordinance itself will have a deterrent effect on this. That's really what our goal is, and or at a minimum, this just being an occasional problem that we have to deal with.
Okay. And then my last just logistics question for you is, we tag it. We say we're going to remove it in 7 days. The items are tagged. On the 8th day, they haven't come by. We haven't seen them, so we're going to remove those items from a spot in the underground garage and take it over to on Davis Street there.
Yeah, probably one of our public works facilities.
Right.
We stored out. We're going to be buying a special container, and they'll be stored, outside of the building in a locked container.
So now we've got just an empty area of the parking garage where there's nothing there anymore. How are we going to put something there? I know you said you're going to have some signs, but was your thought to put something on the ground or in the general vicinity that's going to tell them where to pick it up at?
Most likely on the wall near where they were.
Okay.
There'd be a notice saying, call this number or visit this address to make an appointment to, retrieve your items.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Passman, did you have something to add?
I just want to add on the 30 days that's not accidental or circumstantial. We looked at case law and found that the vast majority of federal courts that have looked at ordinances like this have upheld 30-day disposals. We did find one that's much shorter, but it's not in Illinois, and based on the logic of that case and what we think we know about the courts here, we don't think that shorter will pass muster in Illinois. So 30 was, we thought, a good balance. It's been widely supported in various courts around the country.
Okay. Trustee Bertucci.
Mayor, I'd like to move approval of this ordinance amending Chapter 18 of the Municipal Code of the Village of Arlington Heights regarding parking facilities as written and recommended by the Village Board.
Second.
Village staff.
Village staff, thank you.
Is there a motion by Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee Tinaglia, question by Trustee LaBedz?
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. So Mr. Recklouse, you mentioned that these boxes will, and you just mentioned that they would be stored outside whatever the facility is, where we take it, the Public Works area or whatever.
Yes.
Is that okay? I wanted to understand that. How much stuff will there be? How many different boxes? Do you have a feel for that?
We don't. I mean, we're somewhat going to play this by ear. We're working with vendors, and we'll see how much we have to order. But for now, we're going to get one that's sufficient to hold, a significant, enough items that could be bagged and separated. But if this were to be a bigger problem, we can always order more or regroup or store them somewhere else. And we've got a lot of different pieces of property that we own. Where we can secure items, but that's kind of like the electric vehicle item. We are going to have to somewhat kind of see how things go, learn from it, adjust, as we go. This will be a new process for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. So, would it be someplace that is relatively easy for the individual to come and retrieve their stuff?
Yes, but we are saying they'd have to make an appointment to get
Okay.
to meet with a village person. But yeah, it would be somewhere that's accessible to the public.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I just wanted to understand that, and I certainly, this is like has been said already, this is one aspect of this ordinance, but I also appreciate this ordinance in terms of the youth who are finding ways to recreate in the parking garages oftentimes in ways which would be dangerous to them and other people. So thanks.
Anybody else? Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks. Just a real quick follow-up. I mentioned this last time, and I know Trustee Shirley did it again here tonight. I would be an advocate of no 7 days. And I know that that's something that we're not voting on here tonight, but in time, my thought would be, how often are we going to patrol these parking garages in the first place to discover someone is actually there doing it, sleeping, and got like their little homestead set up? How often will that happen? Every day?
Certainly every day, more than every day. We have the squad car that's assigned to that beat going through the garage, and we're going through more frequently now because of some recent incidents. But certainly it would be a couple times a day. You got to remember, excuse me, when we're talking about our parking facilities, generally they're patrolled regularly by our parking folks, routinely during.
So
the
they could
day.
be discovered.
Anyways, yeah.
Several times a day they could be discovered.
100%.
Yeah. So my thought would be, and in time you may agree and something may change, so it's not about tonight, but I would be an advocate of if you're being asked to leave the premises with the threat that if you come back, now you're going to get a fine, and if you continue to be, disruptive about it, you might actually get thrown in jail over the whole thing. Why can't we just ask them on the very first discussion, take your things with you when you leave? Because frankly, I know firemen, I know ER nurses that don't want to touch this stuff. Why can't we just make them take it with them the very first day?
We can tell them and instruct them that they not only can't stay here, but they also have to remove their items. But it presupposes that they have a place to go and a place to put it. And so that's the challenge. And so we are going to sign this and let people know and have a little bit of grace period in the beginning just so people can move, and we'll be letting them know. But let's say a year from now, you go there and there's someone setting up camp, the intent would be to tell the person, you can't be here, you can't be doing this, please take your stuff and leave. That would be the warning that they would get, but the intent would be for them to leave with their items if possible.
Yeah, my guess is that after this first wave of challenges are past us, because you mentioned they'll be patrolling it regularly several times a day, before anyone makes a home there with lots and lots of stuff, they'll be stopped pretty quickly. And it'll be easier to ask them to just take all that, whatever's there with them now, and don't do this. Please don't do this.
And I could tell you, Trustee Tinaglia, that word is already spreading. I mean, I had a conversation with an unhoused gentleman the other day who frequents the senior center that I talk to regularly, and he was aware of it. He knew an amazing amount about the ordinance already, and so I think the word is out there about, the fact that this is coming. He knew that we were meeting on Monday, and that you all were going to be voting on it, and so I think the word will be out there among within the community on this, and so but again, we're the police and public works and fire department are prepared to communicate with people and let them know what the rules are, and again, we deal with people always in a straightforward manner and a personal manner, and we would do that in this circumstance as well.
Well, again, I'll repeat what I said earlier. Thank you very much for going this far with it. It's overdue and appreciated.
Okay, I'm in favor of the motion as well. I think Trustee Dunnington raised a valid concern about the length of time that we would be holding on to this property, but I think 30 days is enough and rationally based, as indicated by our village attorney, Hart Passman, and so I would support the motion as proposed. Any input from the audience? Mr. Moons.
Thank you, President Hayes. I'm also concerned, President Hayes, about criminalizing, these folks that need our help right now. And all this is about making them and trying to force them in a model that may not work for them. And we know that just rousting them along doesn't solve our problems here. I don't see anywhere in the ordinance where mental health services or any social services are mandatorily to be offered to them. And I think we're kind of in a spot right now where, we're willing to give millions of dollars to a sports franchise that doesn't need our money, and we're criminalizing the folks that do need our help. And I think we're in a position to do that. And I would ask that either amend the motion now to include a longer period, or that mental health services be provided at the time, or to vote this ordinance down and come back with another more humane, more approachable to what the problem is presenting here. Thank you, President Hayes.
All right, well, Mr. Moores, I'm not sure where you're getting this idea that the village is giving millions of dollars to an NFL football team. It certainly is not the case. And so with respect to this particular ordinance, we're trying to strike a balance between the constitutional rights of these individuals, these unhoused individuals, and the constitutional rights of people who have the right to utilize a public parking garage in a safe manner. And so it's a difficult challenge, but I think this proposed ordinance is certainly one step in that direction of trying to find the right balance to protect everybody's constitutional rights. Everybody that's a stakeholder in this. And that includes individuals who use the public parking garage on a daily basis. They have a right to be safe as well. All right, any further comments from the board? We have anybody else in the audience wish to address the board on this agenda item? If not, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Trustee Bertucci?
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Shirley?
Yes.
Trustee Grasse?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. All right, no other legal business. Any report from the village manager?
Nothing this evening.
It's under petitions and communications. I just want to mention, for those of you who might not be aware of the unfortunate passing of former Park District Commissioner Will Ploger. Will died at the very young age of 53 last year of a sudden cause, and so our thoughts and prayers go out to his wife, Suzanne, and his children, and all those in the Ploger family. And so we thank him for his dedicated service to the Park District for 8 years as a member of the Park Board from 2013 to 2021. And again, we very much appreciate his service, and our hearts go out to his family. Any other petitions that communicate? Trustee Schwingbeck.
Mayor, unless I forgot a date, I believe this is our last meeting before Memorial Day.
It is, yeah.
So we've got the Memorial Day Parade on Monday. I know that's going to be a very important event in our town. So we certainly are looking forward to all of our residents coming out for the parade, and as was mentioned last week. We've got some Arlington Remember signs that are going to be passed out along the parade route. We're going to start about 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'll have a group come with me from Troop 32 Boy Scout Troop at First Presbyterian Church. They're going to hand out all the signs going south along the parade route, and then we've got some volunteers from the Arlington Heights Memorial Library that are going to go north up to Memorial Park. But that's a wonderful event that'll happen, so we hope all of our residents come out for that.
All right, thanks for the reminder, Trustee Schwingbeck. Any further petitions from the board? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
By Trustee Bertucci, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all for joining us tonight.